Okay. So, hey everyone, thanks for joining our Modern Change Academy session. This is a series that occurs on the roughly around the fourth Thursday of every month. Today, we're going to be talking about digital product release and CSDM. Okay, before we jump in, we have our safe harbor. So there may be some forward-looking statements in this presentation. Those are based on our beliefs right now, so please don't take anything as set in stone, as it could change. Great. Okay. So we're going to start off with some speaker introductions, and then we're going to cover really the what, why, and how of DPR and CSDM to give you all some background. Then we'll really take a deep dive into the digital product lifecycle. So walking through the plan, build, run phases. And we'll end with some time for Q&A. We'll have time for Q&A throughout the presentation. So if you have questions, please just post them in the Q&A section. We'll answer some of those as we go. We'll also pause the presentation to answer some of those live. So please just post all your questions there as we do it. And with that, I think let's jump in. So my name's Greg Hollis. I'm an outbound product manager as part of ITSM. I work mostly on our change and release products. So I run a lot of customer programs, events, and engagements, really all focused on helping you get to value with our products. Colin, you're on mute.
There we go. Now I'm not on mute. So hello, everybody. My name is Colin O'Brien. I am a part of the inbound product management team. So I work specifically right now on digital product release. And then over my tenure at ServiceNow, I've worked on a variety of products, our Agile solutions, our DevOps solutions, again, most recently with DPR. And I've also worked pretty closely with the CSDM team over the years, going back all the way to when it was first introduced in Knowledge, I think it was Knowledge 17. And I've been working with Mark Bodman and Scott Lim on this for quite some time. So excited to be able to go through this with you all.
Great. Okay, to start off the session, we're going to run a couple of polls. We want to get a sense of your background with both CSDM and DPR, and then we want to understand a couple more things. So we're going to run 3 poll questions. So we'll start with this one. So for the first, we're wondering about your familiarity with CSDM. And then the second is how familiar you are with DPR, digital product release. So let me pull that up. We'll give you about a minute or so to answer this. These will both help us tailor the rest of the presentation based on your current understanding and how much we need to go into detail about different topics. Okay, looks like things have flattened out. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Let me share the results.
Yeah, so I definitely say for those that are looking through, that this is the first time you've heard of the CSDM. We'll definitely give a gentle introduction. It looks like most are at least aware. And this does not assume that you know the common services data model or that you've adopted it. But it's good to know that most are at least aware of it. And then with DPR, this is kind of the numbers I was expecting. So digital product release is a new product for ServiceNow. It's part of ITSM. We'll definitely go into how it relates as well. But for those of you all that have already started using it, welcome. And we'll definitely be going through portions of that for today. But this is, again, while you will be seeing DPR today, this is about how everything connects. That's what our focus is going to be. Okay, so for the next poll.
Yes, so for this next poll, we're wondering where you manage your list of apps. If you do it in ServiceNow, yes or no, and then a little bit more context. So if you are doing it in ServiceNow, just interested in which table you're managing in, and if not, are you using an out-of-the-box solution or a custom solution? So let me run this one. Okay, take about a minute or so for this one as well.
And I will say for sometimes there's a conversation as to what an app is. Really, I'll just say if it's software that you're managing, especially if it goes through a release process. For the DevOps people, this could be as small as a microservice. This could also be something like just SAP or ServiceNow as a quite large solution. So everything within that range, I would consider to be an app that you're trying to manage your list of.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. Let me share the results.
And so yeah, again, as I look through the result here, um, it's good that the vast majority are managing your list of apps. And as I look through, so some of this is also helping us, so as the product manager for DPR, what an app is, because it's digital product release. So product app, I'll use that term interchangeably. It's really helpful as we try to manage this life cycle as to understanding where your data lives. So we make sure that we are showing the right information. And I'm curious, just, and this is something just in chat if someone wants to, for those that are using something outside of ServiceNow, I'd love to know where they are. Again, don't worry if you can't, but if you're able to put that in chat, it'd just be some good information for me. All right, and the last poll.
Yes. Colin, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, certainly. So because this is about how everything connects, change toward the end is how we connect the planning and building side into the run to the operational side. So if you are raising a change request because you're deploying something, what's the kind of information that you want captured? Especially if we were to help automate any of this, this again, just this will be an open text. So if we just want to spend about a minute, minute and a half, just letting us know, because again, I'm going to take this as feedback to help as I bridge the plan and build world into the operational side. What kind of things from the CMDB and change do you need to have included as part of an ideal scenario? We're getting all the poll questions out of the way right at the beginning. So thank you. Thank you for this information. Yes, we've got about another 20 seconds. I just want to make sure we get through everything. So if you're still typing something in, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. I see a lot of people hitting submit. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end this one. So if you're finishing your thought, go ahead and
Just
submit.
hit the submit and we'll take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you to everyone who answered. Okay.
All right. So with that, let's get into the meat of this. So for the majority of you, digital product release, this is your first time hearing about it, or some have heard, but haven't started looking into it. So as a part of my tenure at ServiceNow, I have owned Release Management V2. And by own it, I mean I was the last person to touch it. And so my name has been on it while I work on other things like our Agile solutions, our DevOps solutions, and most recently as we get into digital product release. This is a replacement. So where Release Management V2 was a collection of tables, most customers had customized it if they were using it because it was more of a framework. DPR is a more intentional solution that tries to be the release process orchestrator. So we're not building a CI/CD tool, but as we look at how we validate that something is ready for change, and this is where the connection with the Modern Change Academy goes in, we're wanting to know, is what we're trying to change ready? So this could be for custom software that you're building in-house. This could be for COTS. This could be for more what I'll call infrastructure that's software, so like Windows updates or Oracle updates. And we are trying to validate that it is ready for change, because a lot of customers that I've worked with over the years have really put their release process into their change process, which just makes change that much bigger, that much harder to tailor. And so DPR is really about how we shift left with understanding what are the activities that we need to do before we try to get a change authorized, before we go to deployment. So we're working on the process orchestration. We're not doing the deployment. We're not a CI/CD tool, but we make sure that we are release ready. And we do that by collecting lots of data from across the lifecycle. And this is why the CSDM and really just broadly ServiceNow information is important. Because if you look at the overall lifecycle, and I have a very generic one here, we might have different policies along the way, like whether or not there's sign off that, yes, this is a release we want to work on. If it's custom, do we have testing in place? Do we have code coverage in place? There could be architecture reviews or design reviews. All of this is information that we pull from a variety of sources and link it all up together by leveraging the common services data model wherever possible. And by doing that, we can help to automate the check to make sure, are we ready for release? And then the change request itself is the authorization to deploy by looking at, is this release, has it met all of its policies? And these policies will come across data. It can be anything you use. If you have people getting like an approval right now, that is probably something we could have an automated approval that just looks at data in order to get that sign off. So for the handful that have not heard of the CSDM before, the CSDM stands for the Common Services Data Model. So it's a common set of practices and definitions across ServiceNow. And that data model is represented primarily within the CMDB. And this is just a best practice approach on how to structure your CMDB in order to really have everything connected within ServiceNow. Because if you look at the entire life cycle of products, they start with planning. What is it that you want to build? When do you plan on deploying it? Like, what version of your software do you want it to be in? What are all of the activities that go into building it? And then with the connection to change, what are we actually deploying? Like a change request, when you raise it, you say this is the configuration item, that's what is changing. But we want to know what about this change is occurring. So that would be, in this case, a version of a product, which helps us on the operational side, which we'll get into more on reducing MTTR, reducing the amount of effort it takes to do root cause analysis when a problem is uncovered. By having a well understood data model, it allows us to streamline lots of activities. And don't worry, you don't have to memorize this. There is not a quiz at the end of this presentation, but a lot of work and thought with our customers internally, working with thought leaders in the industry, have gone into putting together the Common Services Data Model. So most of this should actually be in the back end. This should not be something that you're having to interact with on a day-to-day basis. But as we dive into it, we're making sure that information is in the right place, linked in the right ways, so that you can take advantage of saying something like, hey, we have an outage. It's in this environment. This is my app service. What's on that app service? What have we deployed to it? What are the changes that have occurred over time? What was the code that went into it? All of that are back-end things that we can attach in the right place to help streamline across the variety of activities that go on when something like an outage occurs. Now, for customers that are leveraging digital product release, or they're looking into it, one of the first questions we get asked is, do we need to have the common services data model fully implemented in order to leverage DPR? So no, the short answer to that question is, it is not a prerequisite to get started. Now, leveraging DPR will start you down that path to making sure that we do have information in the right place. We do a lot of it for you wherever possible. We have ways to import information to get it from the tables you're using today into the correct tables, not moving anything, but just making sure everything is linked up so that we can start to manage this entire life cycle. And then as you mature in this regard, we have added abilities that we attach as you go along. So you do not have to have everything we go over set up before you get started, but we definitely are going to help you transition along this path to adopting the common services data model. So where does it start? So in the common services data model, there's the configuration items that you're all using today, at least I'm hoping you're all using today, when you, for instance, raise a change and reference a configuration item. But we start a little bit earlier. So digital product release starts with the product models that are the application model and the software model. Now, I've been at ServiceNow for a decade, so I now understand the difference between a normal and a standard change. When I first came here, they were synonyms, so I didn't know the difference between them. I come from a development background. And it's similar now with application model versus software model, because those two words are synonyms, at least to most people. But they have a very important distinction between them. So an application model is the product, just generically. So it would be, for instance, iOS. The software model is a version of that product. So iOS, what are we on? 18, I think just came out, or 18.1, something along there. And that version of that software is a software model. And these link out to application services. Now, we'll get into more of the details later, but DPR is really focused on, we have application models and software models. And I try to never actually show those labels, because for your end users, that should just be in the background. But those are the fundamental concepts that we work on to make sure that we are planning and building things and making sure that they are ready for change, which is when we get into the application service. And at least for now, outside of scope are like hardware. Digital product release is focused on software for today. So hardware models are not currently in scope for what DPR manages. So what does this end-to-end lifecycle look like? Well, it starts with planning. So we have concepts like features and enhancements that we're trying to identify what it is that we want to build. And those are attached to the software product itself. And this is why we asked, what tables do you use today? Business app was the one that came up the most. Business service gets used a lot as well, but these can all be linked. And once we have all of these features and enhancements defined within our products, we can bundle them into a version. So a version is just what we think about. ServiceNow, we just had our Xanadu release. So that is a version. And when you all decide you want to upgrade to Xanadu, because Xanadu is ready, we have validated that it is ready for customers to adopt, then a change request is raised. And that's when we get to where we deploy it. So DPR is focused on what is being released. Change starts to focus on where it is being deployed. So what is the app service or some other CI class that you're using? where you want to deploy this to. And then eventually this gets used by your end users. So we'll get into the tables and how they relate in just a little bit, but just trying to keep the thread of business applications and the products themselves. That is the what. The version is really the more concrete, and it gets deployed somewhere to an app service, sometimes a business service, sometimes another CI that you have defined. So how does connecting all of this help? So let's say that we're using DPR to validate our release. So we have an approved release, we have an approved version that is ready to go into a change. So we publish that new version, it's documented, and we've connected everything to say, this is what has gone into this new version. Now let's say after the change is raised, there is a service degradation that has occurred. We've detected it, an incident's raised, it's routed to IT. Now, what most of you do today is have a view of the operational side. You can look at the alerts that come in. You can look at the logs that have come in. And that's what you'll use in order to do root cause analysis that you'll do in order to help resolve that incident. But there's a portion that is missing that the broader common services data model and the DevOps data model with it will help to show you, which is what was actually in that release, what was in that version that you deployed. Were there security scans that were run? Were there test results that were run? What code was impacted? Why did we build this in the first place? Having the build and plan side allows you to see the full view of what it went into this new version that you have deployed out into production. That way, we can reduce the mean time to identify and the mean time to resolve and help streamline the root cause analysis by being able to trace back and say, this app service is degraded. What's running on this app service? Okay, it's version 1.0 of our product. I'm going to be using an FMR loan product in just a little bit. What was in FMR loan? Well, I can see the logs and the alerts, but I can also see the code that was changed. I can see the test results that went into it. I can see the artifacts that are a part of it. By connecting all of this to the common services data model, we have a full view of everything that went on from the outage all the way back to what it was we built in the first place. So that's really the why. As you adopt more and more of the CSDM, we can streamline and provide visibility into more and more of what went into that CI that you are running in production. That way we can drive resilient services and make sure that we avoid those outages or those degraded services later. So we're going to now go into a bit more deeper dive. So I've talked about some tables, but I'm going to start showing you some relationships. And we're going to go through plan, build, and run. And from this portion on, I'm also going to show you a bit of what that looks like from within ServiceNow, primarily within DPR, but we'll also be bringing up change to show how all of this relates. So on the plan side, this is where we are managing our products, our applications. Again, I'll use the term interchangeably, defining what the business need is. And the two primary tables that are in use here are business application and the application product model. And both are used, both are necessary, and they're both linked. So if we talk about a business application, this is something that is, I'd say, important, something that you truly want to manage. If you're doing enterprise architecture, this is really what you're going to be doing that enterprise architecture off of. And that business application is linked to a digital product, which is the application product model. And there's a linkage between them. Starting in Vancouver, there's actually a business job, not a business job. There's a nightly job that runs that makes sure that all of your business applications have a corresponding application product model. There's a chance it's turned off during your upgrades. You may have decided not to have it turned on, but by having it turned on, we not only create the application product model for you, we also link the two of them together, because the recommendation for the CSDM is that every business application should have a corresponding digital product, or again, application product model is the table. However, the converse is not necessarily true. Some of your digital products may not rise to the level of being a business application. If you're a DevOps team, or if you're using terms like microservice, if that's something that resonates with you, those are usually smaller than what really rise to the level of a business application. There should be a digital product entry for it because that microservice should go through a release process. When you deploy a new version of it, it should go through your change process. But again, it may not just be important enough for you to define it as a business application. So the way that this would be modeled out is on the left side, I have a conceptual model where we have a business application and it has a digital product. Now, not every digital product has a business application. And that digital product could have child products. I use the term included products because it could be included in multiple places, but there becomes a hierarchy that allows you to define the relationships between some of these bigger business applications and these smaller things like microservices. In the example that I'm going to switch over to, I have the FMR loan business application and digital product, but this digital product also has some microservices that are attached to it. That way I can get a full picture of what goes into this product. And Greg, as I switch over to my instance and make sure that I haven't been logged out, are there any questions in chat that I should get to?
Yeah, there's one that's it's about DPR and related to CSDM 5 specifically. If you can
Okay.
speak to that.
Yeah, so CSDM 5 is currently being worked on. And these associations, and it looks like I probably did get logged out, so I'm going to re-log in while I answer this question. So there are changes coming with CSDM 5. However, most of the associations that are already here are going to continue. So for instance, there's some terminology change, like the term for business application may be changing. And there's some additional relationships that we're working on to better describe these lower level components. So the microservice example that I was referencing just a little while ago might, because we're still working through this, become known as a software component, where there's, again, better understanding of what it is that we are trying to describe within the CSDM. I am keeping this talk to CSDM 4 since it is what is out, but with 5, again, we're expanding and clarifying some of these terms, and digital component is one of the terms that's coming, or software component is one of the terms that's coming to better describe these smaller systems. The link between business application and the app model is going to continue. And again, others we're just clarifying for also other things like firmware, AI models, things like that. Was there any follow-up in chat while I re-navigate to the product page?
Bubble just came through. Sorry, one sec. So what is the current ServiceNow definition for a business application?
Yeah, so that actually will vary. If it's something that your end users interact with, I tend to say it's a business application. So for instance, most end users don't interact with a microservice. So probably not big enough. Wherever you're going to really, where an end user would raise an incident or a case against, that is probably a business application. Now, the incident could be with a smaller microservice, so it might need to be reclassified, but your end users don't know that. That's behind the scenes componentry that they just don't know. So if it would be in your catalog, if it would be something that a customer would raise an incident against, that's probably a business application. Okay, so I've logged into DPR. I'm logged into as a user that can do pretty much everything within DPR. And the first place I went to is my list of products. Now, this discussion about application model and business application, things like that, most end users don't know about our backend. And honestly, I think that's fine. That's what architects should know. That's what process owners should know. But if I'm just looking at what's the stuff that I manage, I am probably not someone that cares to differentiate between an app model and a business application. However, it's important that we do keep these things linked together and updated. So I'm navigating into this FMR loan origination, and it's what I'd consider a top level business application. And because of that, while I have some core information about FMR loan, I can know who the product owner is, I can see what state it's in right now. I do have a link to the backing business application because this table that I'm interacting with is the application model table. So if I need to see about the business application, then I can click into it because it has generally a lot of good, meaningful information that your end users should be aware of and they should be able to navigate to in order to better understand the full health of what's going on. So we do connect them because they are connected behind the scenes. And if you are leveraging that business, that nightly job, then this will happen automatically. The FMR loan will be here automatically, and the link to business application will be here automatically. However, for smaller things, like within my included products, I have a couple of microservices. These microservices don't have a business application tied to it because it's smaller. It's not something that needs a business application, and therefore the link isn't here because it doesn't exist. So we are aware of the structure in the backend as to whether or not you have a business application tied to this digital product, to this application model. And another capability, now, again, you don't have to implement what I'm going through now. We do have products, but things like features and enhancements, these are optional, additional things that are part of the common services data model that allow us to have better understanding of what's going on. Like I have this seamless user experience feature, and even this feature has an epic that is associated with it. This epic may have stories, and this information could be coming from Azure DevOps or Jira or Agile 2.0, depending on what you're using. But it gives us a better picture of what it is that this product does. Again, optional. You don't have to manage your features. It also gives us the ability to know what version we have implemented these features within. Because again, if an outage occurs, maybe one of these features was the cause of it. So by being able to understand the inventory of what is in this product, again, we're providing progressive enhancements to how we can help your teams have more resilient services. So at its core, we have the application product model linked to a business application that can have features that we can plan into versions. So that's the first step. Now, the next is when we get into more of the build side. So there are now two concepts that we add within the build domain. So the first one is a DevOps app, and the other is the digital product version, which is the software product model. And you can see why, for at least an end user's perspective, I call it version instead of calling it a software model, because if they are not ITIL people, they may not know why application and software are different things when they are synonyms, at least in English. So a DevOps app connects us to the plans in Jira, your source code repos in GitHub, your CI/CD pipelines that could be in Jenkins. There's any number of tools where this information can reside. But this gives us more of the developer world. And even with COTS software, you may have source code repos that are maintaining changes. You may still have pipelines that are running test cases. We will pull that information in. That way we can use it to make determinations of, are we ready for our release? Are we ready to raise a change request? And then we have the versions, which tell us what is the specific version, what's the specific change to this product that we want to deploy. So again, a DevOps app, there's usually one DevOps app per digital product. and a version, you can have multiple versions, obviously, over time that you manage. Now, how that shows up, and again, just Greg, as I switch back over, any questions in the chat about the DevOps app or about the versions?
We have a couple questions. I can just, if I just rip a couple of these. So how will the front end, back end, or batch be managed in an application?
So this depends on your application's infrastructure. Your front end could be a more of a front end product, and you could have a back end in your back end product. I really look at how does it deploy and how do you validate the release of it as to how you break it down, which you do not have to break things down. This all gets into how much information do you find necessary to track. But you could, again, have a back-end system versus a front-end system. I've seen that in a variety of places, especially if they deploy to different locations, then you'd most likely want to have two separate entries to manage them, because the back end could be where the incident is, or maybe the front end is where the incident is. As you're trying to really determine where the issue is coming from, that's where having more granular information becomes more beneficial, because you can narrow it down. Again, that's again, it's going to be optional based on the value you get from breaking things down into smaller pieces.
And one more here, or two more. Do you ask your business app owners to provide and maintain this information on business applications?
So a part of DPR is actually helping to federate that out so that they can. We did build in such a way that, for instance, when you need to create a new entry, there is a request system. So this is a catalog item that out of box will automatically create the records, but you could inject an approval process in here so that maybe an enterprise architect needs to review it, or maybe you have a committee that reviews these entries. Or maybe you want it shut down entirely and this just comes from an external system. That's really up to you. But a part of this is helping because, for instance, in my job, I have 5, and it is up to me and Balaji, my co-product manager with DPR, to make sure that we have all of these defined. It does go through an approval, but we define them. And that's what we're seeing happen more and more out in the market, is that the product managers, the product owners, they know about all of their systems. So let's make it easy for them to create them, but without losing the governance that you can put in place by having a request system to validate and make sure that you've got good, clean data that's in the system. But yes, that is what we're seeing happen more and more.
Great. And then just one more. Is there do you know when CSDM 5.0 is being released?
So now we go into the disclaimer that was up at the very beginning for futures. Most likely Knowledge 25. That's the timing I've heard for its announcement. A lot of work is going into getting things ready in Yokohama, which is this February, so that we're ready for that K25. But Knowledge is usually where big things like that are released. So that's, I think, the target for when CSDM 5 will come out.
Okay, great. Thanks, Colin.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about the versions and the planning. Actually, log me out again. No, okay. So first, the DevOps app. So we hide this within DPR. We have a section that says external tools, and what I'm interacting with is actually a DevOps app in the background, because DevOps apps, again, pull in the plans. Maybe you have 2 planning, like maybe I have 2 different Jira projects that are for this FMR loan. And I've got one source code repo, I've got a couple of pipelines, I've got some artifacts. Again, this now becomes optional, but progressively more information that ServiceNow would have access to in order to help you to do root cause analysis faster, to restore service faster. This is just additional information that connects us with DevOps. And as we even drill into it, I think this one has some data. This can show me all of the stories. There's only 2 in this repo, or in this plan within GitHub, that are coming in, so I can see what's going on, even though this is in an external tool, because this is definitely coming from GitHub. So this connects us again with the build side. And then again, optionally, we have the ability to, with release planning, specify what is going into each of these releases. You do not have to define your features and put them into the releases, into the versions that you're managing. But again, it becomes progressive. And instead of having to know what the relationship is, I mean, there's a simple field that's connecting the two. We just want things to be more like drag and drop, where you can do this planning. And we make sure in the backend that we are putting everything in the right place. You can also request additional versions. Just like I said, for products, versions can have a request system in place. We auto create them, but if you need, because if you're using SAM, software asset management especially, you may have a process that needs to go through to make sure that your software asset management information is kept in line. And we can also pull in all of this information from your external tools like Jira, because that's probably where they're being defined today. And this allows us to, again, plan for what is being built. Now, where all of this starts to come in is within the releases themselves. So if I go into a release, I can start to look at more detailed information about what's going on. So if I go into my fall FMR release, this particular release is targeting the 2.1 version of FMR. We're releasing it in the fall. I can see its start and end date. I'm overdue, so this is very high. I can see any tasks or change requests. I didn't plan anything into these, so I don't have any features or stories. But I can start to pull in information and make determinations as a part of this release execution. Again, this is where the power of connecting all this comes from, because you could just have some tasks that need to be done in order to move through the process. But you could also have policies that are in place that allow us to automate deciding whether or not we have completed whatever activities we need to. So for instance, if I needed to have all of my integration tests above 80%, then this policy would look at the data that is coming from the connection to all of my build tools in order to know, are we ready to release? Do we have our user acceptance validation? Is that done as we get into the deployment and the post-release review? So next step would be to deploy this new version out into production. That's where we would be once we completed all of our policies. Which leads us into our final section. And again, the conceptual model is that we have the business application still connected, but now we have a DevOps app that has plans, repos, pipelines, test results, security scans, all of that. And the digital product also has versions that we're managing and deploying. So from FMR alone, we have the top level, which is what I've been managing, but also each microservice can have its own DevOps app with its own code commits, its own work items, its own pipeline that is used in order to validate that the microservice is ready. Now, in the last 15 minutes, let's get into the run side. Now, on the run side, we have at the core, I'd say, is application service. That is the recommended CI to use. A lot of customers still use business service, perfectly fine. If you can move to app service for software, it's better, but a lot of customers are using the business service, and that will also that'll also work for the idea of what it is that you're running. But an application service would have one or more applications in it, and it would be linked to infrastructure as you're managing the technical services. From a DPR perspective, we would target whatever the top level is. So that could be an app service, could be a business service, could be something else. but we like to say that we're deploying that version to the top level entity, which again, recommendation is that it is the application service, but it is not a requirement that it is the application service. So how does that look? On our conceptual model, we now have, as we build this out more and more, we have the business application connected to our digital product, which has versions, which deploys to app services, which could be related to business service. So typically a business service is a higher level construct. So for instance, if we have our financial reporting, that's a business service. We're using SAP Financials in order to do it. That's an app service because SAP Financials is an application. Whereas the higher level financials are the business service. And then the application service is running on infrastructure. In the concrete model, FMR loan has these microservices. Now, for purpose of time, I'm staying at the top level. So again, that's also, if that's what you deploy, then that's fine. And it has versions. Those versions have environments that are lower environments. Test and UAT would be lower environments. They should still be app services. The change process should be very simple for them, but they're still app services. Whereas version 1 is running on prod. Maybe you have multiple prod locations. And you have like an east and a west that you deploy to. Well, you'd want to know if east is running 1.0 and west is running 1.1. That is interesting information. And that application service might be supporting different higher level business services like wire transfer or account creation, because the same app service could be leveraged by multiple business services. So think of app services enabling your higher level business service. So let me show what that looks like from within DPR as we get into the change requests themselves. So when DPR is installed, we have added a field onto change request for tracking the connection between change and release. So I'm now looking at the change requests for this release and really specifically for this version, because the version table as the software model is what we're trying to say is what we are releasing. So if I drill into this change request as an example, I've already created it just in the interest of time. If you click on new from within DPR, or if you're using DevOps change, they'll all show up here. But this is just a basic change request. And where I'm deploying it to is this FMR loan East. That's what this change request is for. What I am deploying is this software model, the fall 2.1 release. So think of the CI, which, if I do FMR loan East, did I not have it as a, oh, I do have to spell it correctly. So that could also be my configuration item. In this case, I've got them as the same. This is where you are deploying, not what you are deploying. What you are deploying is version 2.1. And by connecting these, we can again start to see better information about what it is that this change was deploying. And then afterward, once this change is closed, what should happen is that we update the application service in this case, but whatever your CI class is, we should be updating it with the model ID of the FMR 2.1. So let's see if my instance will respond fast enough for me to show this to you. Greg, I'm going with her because I see a whole bunch of chats keep popping in. While this page loads, are there any questions I should answer?
Yeah, can we do one? So
yeah,
if I'm using business apps to store apps, how will that work with DPR? What about using a business service instead?
So there's an automated job that ties your business app to an app model. We don't do that for business service, although we could, because not all customers are representing their apps in business service. One of the reasons I asked at the very beginning, and I took that as a poll question, is we want to build something for people that are storing their apps in their business services. And we're trying to gather how many customers are doing that so that we can put a similar system in place where applicable for those customers, so that we can do auto creation instead of having to create it manually. You can link the two manually, but we want to put some automation in place so that you don't have to do the manual process. I find the best CMDBs are the ones where people don't maintain them, where they are just either maintained because it happens in the background, or where they're being maintained by something like Discovery or some other automated system. So it looks like I hit the refresh button to get back here. So what I wanted to point out is that I'm now on the application service, and right now it is running version 1.0. How do I know it's running version 1.0? Well, that's because the actual model ID, which was just on the screen. I just literally had it now. Of course, because I'm trying to demo, it decides to hide itself. And I also went through this before we even started. But there is on every CI, there's a model ID field, and that should be updated. And again, I wonder why it decided to disappear on me. Probably because it knew I was doing a live demo, and it would be more fun to here it is. Wanted to put it at the very bottom for me. This right now is saying that while I've got a change request that is open to deploy 2.1, what's running right now on FMR Loan East is the Spring 1.0 version. So if an incident comes in against FMR Loan East and we're trying to do root cause, there might be a change that says I'm trying to change it to 2.1, but right now 1.0 is running. And if I'm not going to due to time, but this particular software model then links to the artifacts that are deployed onto it, which has the test results and has the rest of. I'll show you an example with maybe I've got it here. Let me see if this one has an example with a change. Because this has some DevOps changes on it. We can then surface, it does not. We can then surface things like your test results. We can surface let me see if I'm gonna look at one more. Where's my early release 1.0? I think it's got some changes that have the data. They do. All right, so I'm gonna pull up this one. So by having that connection with the model ID, we also get things like, oh, well, what were the test summaries? So I can see that this has 100% of my unit tests passing that I can drill into. If I have some quality scans, I can drill into those and get the results of the quality scans to see that, we had a quality gate passing from SonarQube. Did we have any bugs? So there are a lot of code smells that were found, but we capture all of this and relate it together, again, by leveraging all of these connections that the Common Services Data Model provides. They are progressive enhancements. So if you can't tell, the one thing I want everyone to walk away with is that you do not have to have already implemented the CSDM in order to start getting benefit, but that you are able to, we've gone through that. So we are able to, through maturity, have more and more of the CSDM adopted, which gives us more and more information that we can use in order to streamline our operational process by streamlining root cause and MTTR. So this is something that will grow as you continue to mature. So I do want to get to additional questions, but a couple of things, because we're pretty close to the top of the hour. We do have a community site for DPR, so if you have questions, feel free to come there. We also have links to how-to videos and our launch and learn session. So please come join the DPR community site and ask questions in the forum. And then we also have a ITSM Customer Adoption Day coming up. So if you want to scan this QR code, I'll leave it here while we answer any other questions, Greg, that are in the chat that we want to get to in the next 5 minutes.